Welcome to the Hall of Teams, the podcast where sports legends live again, where crests, nicknames, and colors are not just designs, but time capsules of culture, community, and change. I'm your host, Kirk Jensen, and today we travel to my home country, Canada. The northern country where hockey was born. From Canada's first game to today's major professional arenas, to every small town rink that fills evenings and weekends with families and volunteers. Here you drive to the rink under streetlights, the sky already dark, because up here, the sun sets early and the cold arrives with it. This is winter in Canada. You step through the arena doors with your stick in one hand and your equipment bag over your shoulder. Inside, the air changes, sharp, clean, familiar. The bright, freshly flooded sheet of ice has a smell of its own, the feel of a second home. As Wayne Gretzky once said, hockey is Canada's game. It is who we are. In this episode, we start at the beginning, when Canada sent the winners of the Allen Cup, from the moment the global teams passed us, to leaving international competition in protest, to the pressure-filled NHL era, to the countdown to the Winter Olympics, and finally, to induction into the Hall of Teams. This is the story of Canada's men's Olympic hockey team. Over 100 years of how a nation learned to carry expectation and pride on the blade of its stick. Chapter 1. Earned at home, defended abroad. Hockey draws its early influence from field hockey, a stick game developed in England in the 1800s. Canada's first organized game was played in 1875 at the Victoria Skating Rink in Montreal. The first rules were published in 1877, and the game has evolved, but it also has remained the same. Skates, sticks, a flat puck driven across the ice, with today's puck being about 3 inches across, weighing 6 ounces, and traveling at over 100 miles an hour in a professional game. The standard rink is 200 feet long, 85 feet wide. The nets are 6 feet wide and 4 feet high. The game is played in 3 20-minute periods with stop time. Canada's Olympic hockey story begins 45 years after that first game. And it begins with a twist. Not at the Winter Games, but at the 1920 Summer Olympics in Antwerp, Belgium. At those games, Canada sent the Winnipeg Falcons, an Icelandic-Canadian club playing in memory of 2 teammates lost in the First World War. They arrived and dominated. Fast, direct, ruthless. They outscored opponents 29-1 and claimed the first Olympic hockey gold. Team leader Frank Fredrickson said, "We did not go as stars. We went as a team." This was Canada's original formula. Earn it at home, then defend it abroad. Crest and colors, a symbol forged in ice. The crest is the maple leaf, simple, unmistakable, heavy with meaning. It is not a club mark, it is a national one. The maple leaf has represented Canada since the early 1800s. It appears in the Royal Arms of Canada and became the centerpiece of the national flag in 1965. That is why it turns a jersey into a responsibility the moment it is pulled on. The colors are red and white, long tied to Canada's identity, the same colors that fill the national flag. As the Governor of Canada states, red and white have been Canada's national colors since the proclamation of King George V in 1921. Many Canadians embrace the simple meaning, white for the winter snow, red for the maple leaf in autumn. On Olympic ice, those colors are unmistakably Canadian. And as John Cooper, head coach of Team Canada for 2026 said, "Looking at Canada bleeding the red and white, there is a responsibility to our country to perform." Chapter 2. The Olympics, Canada felt the shift. In January 1956, in Cortina d'Ampezzo, Canada learned how the world had taken up the game and that Olympic hockey would never be the same. The Soviet Union arrived for their first Winter Olympic Games. They were amateurs on paper, but a full-time system in practice. athletes supported to train year-round, while much of the world still tried to win with players balancing full-time and part-time jobs. The results were blunt. The Soviet went undefeated. Canada settled for bronze, its lowest finish in 36 years. For Canada, the result was eye-opening. Father Bauer, the architect of Canada's national program, boiled the imbalance and truth down to a single line. We were asking teams to be nations, while other nations were building teams. In the 1960s, Father Bauer pushed Canada towards a true national program that pulled talent from across the country, rather than relying on a single club to represent a whole nation. If you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, you can also watch this episode on YouTube, with rare photos, historic match footage, and visuals that bring the story to life. Search Hall of Teams on YouTube to find it. And if you enjoyed the episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps the channel grow. Chapter 3. The greatest series ever played. Then came the full stop, sharp right turn. In 1972, Canada was finally allowed to face the moment and the truth. Not at the Olympics, but in the Summit Series against the Soviet Union. Canada's best NHL professionals were stepping into a true best-on-best test against the Soviets, the undisputed standard of the era. The Soviets had won 9 straight IIHF World Championships from 1963 to 1971, and 3 straight Olympic gold medals in 64, 68, and 72. Canada's players were not dragged into it. They leaned into it because this was not a paycheck series. It was a pride series. I was 12 years old attending junior high in Camrose, Alberta. For the last 3 games, we were allowed to miss class and all pile into the gym to watch the game on a 20-inch black and white TV as legendary announcer Foster Hewitt called the game. For one game, our home TV wasn't working. I walked down the street, knocking on doors, seeing who was watching the game and if I could come in and watch it. It was a different time. It was that important to us all. As September unfolded, it began with a Game 1 loss, and the whole country came to a stop. Pressure rose, and the meaning grew beyond wins and losses. This was not about trophies. It was about identity and a national way of life. After Game 4, Canada was down 2-1-1. The country was frozen in disbelief. These were our superstars and heroes being humbled in real time. On the ice in Vancouver, minutes after the Game 4 loss, Phil Esposito stood in full gear, sweat streaming down his face as he faced CTV's Johnny Esau. Live on television, he spoke to the nation.
For the people across Canada, we tried, we did our best, and for the people that boo us, geez, all of us guys are really disheartened and we're disillusioned and we're disappointed in some of the people. We cannot believe the bad press we've got, the booing we've gotten in our own buildings, and if the Russians boo their players, if the Russians boo their players like some of the Canadian fans, I'm not saying all of them, some of them booed us, then I'll come back and I'll apologize to each one of the Canadians, but I don't think they will. I'm really disappointed. I am completely disappointed. I cannot believe it. Some of our guys are really down in the dumps. We know, we're trying. What the hell? I mean, we're doing the best we can, and they got a good team, and let's face facts. But it doesn't mean that we're not giving it our 150%, because we certainly are.
His words rang sharp and clear. It sounded like a vow, a leader refusing to let the country drift into doubt. From that point, Canada pulled together. Doubters were pushed aside. Complainers were left to mutter to themselves. The room tightened, the bench hardened, and the team rallied around each other with belief, as solid as granite of the Canadian Shield. Shift by shift, period by period, game by game, they grew stronger, and it changed Canada's hockey identity. Ken Dryden put the historical weight on it, not as a fan, but as the goalie who stood in the crease and watched the sport change in front of him. That series clearly and undeniably is the most important moment in hockey's history. That is why so many still call it the greatest series ever played. It reset what hockey was. Chapter 4, The Pipeline, From Pond to Podium. Canada's Olympic success is built long before the Games begin. The scale of the pipeline alone is part of the story. The country has approximately 5,000 outdoor rinks and 3,000 indoor skating rinks. Indoor rinks are for practices and games. Outdoor rinks are where creativity is forged. You learn to handle bad ice, bouncing pucks, in tight space. In the pipeline, it's massive. Hockey Canada reported over 603,000 registered players in sanctioned programs. The biggest growth story has been women and girls. Hockey Canada has reported about a 30% growth in women and girls playing since 2022, with over 108,000 women and girls now registered. The base feeds a layered system. Minor hockey associations, provincial programs, the CHL, university sports, and Hockey Canada's Program of Excellence, where players are evaluated and prepared for international play. The important grassroots are built on the people who run the rinks, coaches and managers and volunteers who spend countless hours teaching the fundamentals and the life lessons that shape healthier, more active young Canadians. Behind the Bench reveals the leadership, coaching structure, and high-performance support staff that make championship performance possible. At the top, Hockey Canada's senior leadership sets the direction and appoints the leadership group. The general manager runs roster construction, supported by assistant GMs and a director of player personnel. A head coach defines the team's identity. Assistant coaches handle special teams and goaltending. Team operations manage camps, travel, security, and accreditation. Supporting the players is a full performance staff: medical, strength, nutrition, recovery, readiness, and equipment managers. They handle skates, sticks, jerseys, and constant repairs. Communications manage availability, protecting the team as the spotlight intensifies. The players on an Olympic hockey roster typically top out at 25 players, usually 22 skaters and 3 goalies. The full traveling group lands between 45 and 60 people. Chapter 5, The Bruises Beneath the Gold. Canadian Olympic hockey is remembered for gold, but the story is also carried by the championships that stayed in Canada's throat when the Maple Leaf did not celebrate. Cortina in 1956 was the first jolt. Canada did not fall apart. Canada fought, but the podium was no longer automatic. Bronze felt like a loss, proof that history could not win championships on its own, and that Canada's approach to selecting a team would have to evolve. Innsbruck in 1964 took that warning and made it personal. Canada finished tied for second, and by the rules, they were awarded second place, and then they were fourth. Trainer George Noonan never forgot the swing, saying, "We were tied for the silver medal right behind the Russians." The tie-breaking process was to give Canada the silver, but while we were on the bus going back to the rink for the medal presentations, Canada was relegated to fourth place. In Lake Placid in 1980, Canada and the USA were still competing under amateur eligibility rules. The USA took gold in the Miracle on Ice. Canada finished sixth. The message was blunt. Canada had to revisit its program of excellence. Then came Nagano in 1998, and the moment Canadians still replay without wanting to. The NHL players arrived, best on best, and Canada still did not reach the final. With the semi-final shootout loss to the Czech Republic, an image was burned into Canadians' memory. Wayne Gretzky, alone on the bench, staring out at the ice, never selected by the coaches as one of the first 5 shooters. Turn in 2006 brought a different kind of ache. Not one moment, not one decision. Just a team that never became a team in time. When it ended, Jerome McGinley said, "It doesn't feel good at all. I mean, we know we have to get better in a lot of ways." That is the other side of Canada's Olympic identity. Gold is the standard. Memory is the fuel. When Team Canada returns, it does not just bring talent. It brings scars and an expectation that is non-negotiable. Chapter 6, the Icon Era. In Salt Lake City in 2002, Canada's men arrived carrying a 50-year drought, and the pressure was not subtle. Captain Mario Lemieux embraced it, saying, "If you're not able to play under pressure, maybe you should just stay home and watch it on TV." Canada delivered with gold, and the drought ended. In Vancouver 2010, playing in their home country, the Olympics felt like a national exam.
The golden goal! And Canada has once in a lifetime Olympic gold!
By Sochi 2014, Canada was no longer chasing relief. It was defending a standard, and it did it with something colder than flair: control. Canada allowed only 3 goals in 6 games, and even the players talked about it like a blueprint and not a hot streak. Jonathan Toews on how connected the team felt in the final? It was a feeling of absolute trust that as soon as you jumped over the boards, you're going out there to do the exact same thing that the line before you did, to keep that momentum. Russian legendary goaltender Vladislav Tretiak said, "That Canadian team did not give you hope. That is true dominance." In that same era, Canada's women's teams also built a dynasty, winning 4 straight Olympic gold medals from 2002 to 2014 and again in 2022. This is the Icon Era because it proves something rare in sport. When Canada's best players wear the maple leaf, it is not a showcase. It is a responsibility. They carried it and delivered. In 2026, the best are back, and the weight returns with them. Trivia from the Hall, the Loonie beneath the ice. The Loonie is Canada's $1 coin introduced in 1987. It takes its name from the image of the loon engraved on one side, a bird associated with Canada's wilderness. Over time, the Loonie became a symbol of national identity. At the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics, a Canadian Loonie was secretly sealed beneath the center ice dot. It was placed there during the initial ice making process by Trent Evans, a Canadian ice maker from Edmonton, a coin that became a private piece of belief for Team Canada. After the gold medals were won, the story surfaced publicly when Wayne Gretzky revealed the coin at the post-game news conference. The Lucky Loonie is now on display in Toronto at the Hockey Hall of Fame as part of the Olympic memorial exhibits. Chapter 7, the countdown to Milano Cortina. The loudest part is over. The highly scrutinized roster is now set, filled with some of the greatest names in the game today. McDavid, McKinnon, Celebrini, bringing the new wave, pure speed, relentless attack, and a ceiling that can break a game wide open. On the back end, Cale Makar and Shea Theodore, the game-breaking puck movers and power play quarterbacks. Crosby, Marchand, and Doughty bring the experience, calm under pressure, and a fire that can light the whole bench. And the question that hangs in the cold air, where goaltending is the question mark: can Bennington, Kemper, and Thompson answer when the medal games get tight? With the selections complete, the weight does not disappear, it shifts, where coaches have to build chemistry fast. And in the final days before the first game, the team becomes what Canada has always demanded at the Olympics. Not a collection of names, but a single unit. You do not need the name on your back when everyone already knows what you're playing for. Connor McDavid had these words to say about the team in the Olympic journey:
That being said, excited. It's just getting closer. Obviously, with the roster announcement today, becomes a lot more real. Start to picture some of those faces that'll be there with you on the team. Playing together. So, really excited.
Playing in the Olympics is where every mistake is permanent, and every win becomes national memory. And when Team Canada steps through those arena doors and onto that bright sheet of ice, they will not be entering a game. They will be stepping into one of Canada's oldest traditions to answer one question. Do we still have what the Maple Leaf demands? And when the final horn sounds, will O Canada be the last anthem played? From the coasts of British Columbia to the fishing towns of Newfoundland, from the rugged Rocky Mountains of Alberta to the waving wheat fields of Saskatchewan, from prairie barns in Manitoba to the great arenas of Montreal and Toronto, the Olympic Games are the place where dreams collide with expectation and where the Maple Leaf brings us all together. Players were not always chosen because they were the biggest names. They were chosen because they were trusted. Team Canada did not just win medals, it taught a country how to measure itself honestly. Ken Dryden once wrote, "Hockey is the rare place where Canada sees itself clearly." So today, we recognize more than victories. We recognize responsibility. We recognize a standard that has been earned, challenged, and upheld across generations for its impact on the game, its influence on national identity, and its wavering commitment to excellence under pressure. The Canadian Olympic hockey team is hereby inducted into the Hall of Teams. In the Hall of Teams, legends don't just live in the past. They rise again through you. This year, you decide who earns the title Team of the Year. It's more than a title. It's a legacy without borders, across all sport, across time, across the world. We want to hear your thoughts, so let us know in the comments what you liked in this journey. When you liked and subscribe, you're not just a viewer, you're part of the Hall. Each January, your voice helps decide which legendary team claims the ultimate title of Team of the Year. Help us immortalize the greatest across all sports, across time, and across the world. Subscribe and make your voice and your vote count. Next time, we travel north to Norway, where winter is not a season, it is a way of life. We tell the story of the Norwegian Olympic ski team, the most decorated and dominant force the Winter Olympic Games have ever known. Until then, remember, behind every logo is a legacy, and behind every team, a tale worth telling. I'm Kirk Jensen, and this is the Hall of Teams. Trivia from the Hall, the gold medal that never existed. Canada's first Olympic hockey gold medal was never actually awarded on the night it was won. At the 1924 Winter Olympics in Chamonix, the tournament was originally staged as part of an international winter sports week, not yet officially recognized as the Olympic Winter Games. Canada's team, represented by the Toronto Granites, dominated the field, outscoring opponents 110-3, and claiming first place with ease. But when the medals were handed out, they were technically not Olympic medals at all. It was only a year later, after the International Olympic Committee retroactively declared the Chamonix event the first official Winter Olympics, that Canada's gold became an Olympic gold in the record books. For a full year, Canada had no idea it was an Olympic champion. The dominance counted, the legacy endured, but history had to catch up. As historian Andrew Podnieks later noted, the Granites set a standard so overwhelming that it defined Olympic hockey before anyone even knew what Olympic hockey would become. Trivia from the Hall, the jersey that refused to be borrowed. Before the gold medal game at the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics, Team Canada faced a strange logistical problem. Their white jerseys, required for the final, had been misplaced during equipment transport. In past tournaments, teams had quietly borrowed spares from clubs or previous Olympic sets. This time, Canada refused. Rather than compromise the maple leaf, team officials delayed warm-ups and worked the phones until the correct jerseys arrived. Players sat in the dressing room, fully dressed, except for their sweaters, waiting. No backups, no substitutes. Only the real thing. When the jerseys finally arrived, Canada took the ice and defeated the United States 5-2, ending a 50-year Olympic gold medal drought. To players in the room, the delay became symbolic. The jersey was not fabric, it was identity. Trivia from the Hall. The what-if Winter Olympic Games. For most of the 20th century, Olympic hockey was not a true best-on-best stage. It was a rule stage. The Olympics finally opened up to professionals in 1988, but it wasn't until 1998 in Nagano that NHL teams finally released players to play in the Winter Games. By then, 72 years and 18 Olympic hockey tournaments had come and gone. Those games that were lost carry a haunting what-if. Some of Canada's greatest names never stepped onto Olympic ice. Imagine Howie Morin in the 1930s, skating like the wind with the maple leaf on his chest. Gordie Howe with that farm strength and that calm violence, where every shift was a promise. Turk Broda in goal, Toronto's big game backbone, built for pressure and tight score hockey. Jean Beliveau as the captain of Team Canada, of a true all-star team, turning the games into a national event decades earlier. Bobby Orr on Olympic-sized ice at full flight, meeting the Soviet machine under the same lights on the same stage. Head shaking. Maybe Canada wins more. Maybe the results are the same. That part will be debated in living rooms, arenas, and coffee shops by Canadians for generations. But the point is clear. The Olympics could not fully capture Canada's golden generations until the doors finally opened completely. When NHL players finally arrived, it did not just change rosters. It changed what Olympic hockey was meant to be, bringing the best athletes on the planet together to compete for gold for their country.